Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support the show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and welcome to a very special holiday-themed Defining Duke and Xbox podcast. Today, as always, I'm joined by Santa Claus himself, Lord Cognito. How are you doing today, good sir?
Yes, I'm doing good. Doing better. Voice is coming back.
Yeah.
Got good rest. Disciplined myself. I was very proud of myself yesterday. I was like, I had the opportunity to act up, and I said, nah, shut it down, Cog. You know you want to do a whole bunch of things. Shut it down. Get some rest. You know what I mean? So rest is important, man.
Fine, act up. Are you talking about like I stayed up late and played games? Is that acting up?
That's acting up.
Yeah,
like,
okay. That's what I was thinking too. I just want to make sure I wasn't like being juvenile here.
Because I go through this little self-battle where it's like, yo, you worked mad hard all week, bro. You ain't do nothing for yourself. And it's like, you need to blaze games all night, or you need to go out, or you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. And I did. I deserved it. Like it was, I did like a bunch of stuff on Saturday, ILP crazy on Sunday. And I'm like, all right, I could do something for myself. But then my body was like, bro, you tired. How about you rest? How about you actually calm yourself down, rest, and then
at that part.
Yeah, bro, it's the worst. So I was like, all right, do that. You got one more week of madness, and then you got to look at that horizon down the road where you're like, all right, then you're going to be able to do everything you want to do. So just one more week, I'm going to discipline myself, and then just got to get through. So that's what it's been, man. What about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, as we record this is Monday, December 16th, for those who want to know how the special sauce is made here at Last Stand. You know, this is how far in advance we record some of these things for the holidays. This is the week of hell. Truly, there's just a ton of podcasts to record, things to finalize, and we have our regular show on the 18th this week as well, which is like our last real one for the year. But it's kind of surreal because as we're recording this, you know, I'll talk about it more on our Wednesday show, which people have already heard by that point, I guess. But man, it's like I can't believe I'm going to be off for like close to a month. You know, I'll be back on Duke when we have to do those episodes. That'll be the only bit of work though I do for a little bit of time, and that'll be cool just to kind of lay low for a while. And so I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the rest and recovery and just the much needed break. But this week leading into that will be a lot of just like pulling everything from everywhere, setting it all up. It'll be a lot. So definitely looking forward to the aftermath of that though. Really in my head, it all starts on Thursday where I'm just like, okay, you're a free man for a little bit.
There you go.
What do you want to do? And for me, it's like, I'm just going to go be a DGen, play some games, exercise.
A DGen.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to keep it real simple, real normal guy life.
Nice. I respect it.
But as we do every holiday, Cog, we have gathered to talk about the best and the worst that Game Pass has to offer in 2024. We've done this for, I think, 3 years now. We almost didn't do it this year because of me. There was just, like I mentioned in our last episode, I was like, 74 hours on Xbox. And I'm not sure if there was like a lot there that I was like grinding into Game Pass, because I went through the list. I went, oh no, we're good. Now, what I will be honest with you about is I wanted to be fair to the top 5 worst games of Game Pass and say that I only have 3. You know, I tried.
I was in the same pocket. I'm sorry.
I tried to put it to 5, but I will admit, as I was making my list, I was reaching. I was reaching hard. I was making jokes. I was like, I'm kind of slandering games at this point. So I said, you know what? Sometimes Cog comes out with like a bigger list than me. I'll lean on him. If he doesn't do that, then that's okay. We'll just do a top 3 worst. And it is just it's just an episode. It's a year where like, hey, we have less negative things to say about Game Pass, and it doesn't have to really follow that rule. I do have a top 5 though. I thought Game Pass in a lot of areas was particularly good, but I'll just tease mine and say the top 3 worst are all from first party.
I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. So, do you have a top 5 and a top 3 as well? Is that kind of where you were at?
Well, pretty much for worst, it's really a top 2, but it's a top 5, but it's an asterisk on 3 of them because I'll just say for right now, it was basically 3 games that were highly anticipated that didn't come out. So I had that was the approach I took, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. But there were definitely 2 on the list that, y'all was the worst for me. You know what I'm saying? For sure.
I have a 3+1 here. So
Okay,
I have like 4 is really an asterisk because the game's really not that bad, but I just have an issue with things about the game and things it stands for where I'm like, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. So do you want to start with our top 5 and then get into our worst? I feel like that's how we should really do this, right? Like, let's just hit our favorite things this year first. Would you like to open us up?
Yeah, let's open us up. So this one was 5 through 3. Obviously I'm going to do from number 5 first. We're going to go from
worst to best.
Worst to best of the best, right? Yeah. So, this one was a struggle because I had like a lot of candidates for my fifth spot. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, let me break it down, and it really got tight. And I said, all right, what's the differentiating factor? And I said, wait a minute. One of these games was actually the zeitgeist. One of these games everybody was talking about. And I said, I'd be remiss if I had to leave this off. And number 5 is Palworld. Palworld make the list. And, obviously it's we forget because it was like so early. It was like January 2024, I believe.
Yeah, it was literally top of the year. I remember it was like the first game I covered when I came back from my holiday break last year. Yeah, it was like popping off. I remember that.
And I remember when they showed it a year ago before the showcase, and creepy cog. I'm like, these stupid little games. Here we go.
Little creatures running around.
Creatures running around, all type of colors and cuteness. And I'm like, I already know what the demographic is. But I do remember, though, in that preview, I saw the guns. I said, oh, this is Pokemon with guns and slavery. I said, wait a minute. You have my interest. So I ain't gonna lie. And it was like through a couple of friends of mine. And I was like, bro, you gotta try this. Like, you have to try this. And I'm like, all right. And it was really cool. Now look, was the UI, everything was still kind of to be determined, still in progress, still whatever. But I remember playing this thing and I was like, bro, this is mad fun. Like I'm the type of guy that I hate those build games and create games, but they were holding my hand just enough. And I just thought the idea of beating up these creatures and then making them work for me is the funniest thing ever.
Like, I was humans too. You could like find like villagers just roaming and you could just like capture and be like, you work for me now.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, this is hilarious. So yeah, Palworld, man, this thing caught the internet by fire. It really set them off. And it's funny because this was the month prior to the business update news, right? So like, this is when things would start. We were like, 2024, it's going to be crazy.
First Game Pass game is just taking over.
And we like, yo, they got a banger. This wasn't even something that was planned. And it's a sensation. And it's taking over the internet. And it was crazy. Obviously, it caught Nintendo's attention. Like, bro, Nintendo was under pressure. Like, they didn't even say their names. We heard of a game. Remember the statement at the time, we will be looking into this kind of thing. I was like, oh, Nintendo's threatened. But what the cool thing is, the Nintendo community and the people in that community was like, look, this is the type of stuff we want. We're tired of the same old lazy formula from Pokemon, and people were excited about it. So yeah, I got to shout out Palworld, man. They don't get enough credit. Obviously, they got work to do. I didn't like that latest which good trailer that they put out with the bad frame rate. But I like the fact that they were aggressive in the space, despite being a little generous with some of the designs that they chose.
Well, maybe I switch up the formula a little bit.
All right, let's go.
Maybe I move into my top 3 asterisk worst games of the year, potentially, and get into that single asterisk.
Oh, okay. So you want to get, all right, so we're not doing best.
No. It's because it just might be Palworld.
Let's go. Let's go right into it.
Like, there's no better time than right now to just cross it off my list. Yeah, so I put it here because it's ultimately not a bad video game. I reviewed it. I had fun with it. I do worry about what Palworld stands for, though. And by the way, nothing to do with Nintendo. I do worry about when we see this game, Light of Motorum, etc. There's a lot of games that look like someone threw a design document into Chat GPT and was like, hey, yo, you got something popular for me? Can you like spit out an idea? And they got it and ran with it. Now, Light of Motorum is far more egregious, but Palworld, you know, visually outside of its creatures, like it is the most uninspired thing I think I've seen. Yes, these creatures are cute, but they're cute because they were taken literally from Pokemon. Like in some cases, 1-to-1. It's not even remotely a secret. But as people said, they don't own the designs and stuff. But I worry about what Palworld, its popularity, its far-reaching success, and sort of the practices deployed to get there, whether it be heavily leaning into the inspiration or not. I talked about this a little bit in my Light of Motorum video, that I do have a concern that we are in a state of our industry where it's very laissez-faire, very open market, free ideas. You very rarely get like a WB coming along and saying like, we're going to take this Nemesis system and make it ours. You cannot evolve it, use it, do anything like it. It's ours. That's horrible for creativity. And as we're seeing, the negative of it is WB's going up in flames, and that system is just literally stuck there now. And it might not even get used yet. We don't know. We don't know if it's going to be, at least at this point in time in recording, we don't know if it's going to be in the Wonder Woman game. So it just might be literally baking there, right? And that sucks because now no one can take that great idea and make a blender game, if you want to call it that, with this idea at the forefront. Like, yeah, remember that Nemesis system? We're doing this unique thing with it. And what a great system it would be for gimmicks. I worry that with games like Palworld or Light of Motorum, that these big developers, big platform holders are going to become way more litigious in the way they copyright, not just their games and like how they protect them, but their ideas, which is the far more concerning thing. A lot of people, and I get it because I'm not like pro corp, but like a lot of people want to stick it to the man so bad. They're like, fuck it, let them do it. Fuck these guys. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's fuck these guys until they start bringing out the patents for like, hey, you can't capture monsters in your game with a circular object in an open field. Right. Well, that's an idea we had. Well, darn, like what can we do now? You limit the field of creativity. These games are, no matter how good and funny it is, long term can have far more damage. And I think people actually process. And I think even in this podcast, people are going to laugh or make fun of me. Be like, fuck Nintendo, Matty, do what they want. Yeah, like, again, I'm not pro Nintendo by any stretch of the imagination. It's not to defend them. It's just to say that I do look at a game like Palworld, which is so uninspired in many ways and has a couple of fun mechanics, and how much the world was drawn to it, and how companies are going to clutch their pearls a little bit. And that's just going to be the natural reaction. Whether it's right or wrong is not my concern. It's that it's going to happen. You fly really close to the sun, you get that level of viral success. You know, companies going to lock shit down. You know, they're not going to want you to eat off their plate. It's at that point, it's like survival of the fittest. And I'm curious to see where the Nintendo Pocket Pair case goes. I hope Pocket Pair comes out on top because, again, we don't want more litigious companies out there. But let's say Nintendo does lose this. I do worry about a world where they're like, all right, whatever. But now moving forward, like we need to really lay down the law. Like we need to make sure like these ideas are protected, that no one can infringe, because especially a company like Nintendo is defined by those core IP, like a Pokemon, like a Mario, a Zelda. And when those get infringed upon, in their eyes, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, so I look at a game like Power and I'm like, its success is great. Happy for them. Had a decent time with it. Frankly, I think the game sucks long term in that like it has done a horrible job with its support. And again, the frame rate in that trailer spoke for itself, but just how they're doing like new islands and they all literally, like, I know those assets because I've been in the Unreal marketplace and I just see them and I'm like, this is just like asset flips, bro. And I'm like, I respect if people are like, I just need simple fun, but I feel like this is so bottom of the barrel for how much they are making that you are selling yourself short, even if you enjoy it. It's not me policing your fun, but you just need to be aware of what you're consuming, I think, and sort of the effects of that consumption. I don't think it matters ultimately what I say. And don't get me wrong, I do like the whole, when you're in the town and you're like putting your monsters to work and you're like, they're getting pissed off. You're like, dude, go water the plants. Would you shut up? Like, you know, like I love that part of the game. You know, it's so fun just like managing the town and putting people to work and like grabbing food and making sure they're all just taken care of. Like that's the really good part.
Right.
But otherwise, though, I just think that the game flies a little close to the sun, and I just worry long term about those impacts. So while its success for Xbox is notable, one of the biggest successes the company saw this year in a, I think, year plagued with a lot of issues, I do put this one, again, I must emphasize, this is not a number 4. This is 3, we'll say 3A as an asterisk. Like, it is a worse game, but in the way of just, I worry on the effects it will have as a video game. But that's why I didn't do many more of these, because I realized at a certain point, you're kind of squeezing a game for nothing. But I felt this one was more justifiable and funny because you had in your top 5.
Yeah, no, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. But I understand the philosophical aspect. I understand the reactionary aspect to patents, because patents, I agree. I think patents kill creativity, and it's just more of a legal block to say we own this, but you can't use this aspect of a game kind of thing. And that's fair. So I have no problem with that. I think the only thing I would say is that, unfortunately in this industry, I think of like the PUBG to Fortnite situation where Fortnite came in and was like, hey, Fortnite was like a completely different game. It was like, hey, I can help you. And here's your engine. And they saw that engine and they were like, oh my God, this is great. We can make one of these battle royale joints and use our assets. And then boom, you know what I'm saying? And then it happens. And, it's one of those things where, the people will decide though, ultimately, what is fun, but you are making a valid point. And I have to admit that, like, when the reaction of doing something like Palworld could create a scenario, like you said, where patents get created, like, yo, bro, the idea of catching a monster is ours. No one can ever do this now because we are scared of all the things that can happen with all these type of ideas.
Yeah.
So, very valid point on that side.
Yeah, those pitfalls are just scary. I mean, imagine if like Square Enix just put a patent down for like turn-based when they were doing Final Fantasy and shit. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah.
There could just be so many landmines. Absolutely. So many more. There already are a decent amount of landmines.
Absolutely.
And it's just, again, like, that's why no one uses the HD 2D terminology when it comes to like pixel art games. Square Enix copywrote that term. They protected it, but they don't protect like the actual existence of that type of game, just more so like referencing that is that. So that's why like you hear people say like it's like a pixel art game or HD pixel art game, that sort of thing. Or pixel art with like modern lighting and graphics. Like no one ever uses the HD 2D moniker except Square, because they've literally made it like a marketing tag for themselves and protected it. So
it's a great discussion, because there's also a part of me that like game development is iteration sometimes. A lot of times people will come by and see what you have, iterate upon your idea, and then make it so much better that now, like I said, the people have decided there's so many games like that are inspired by other games. And you go, man, like, this is the next step. Because I guess the last thing I'll say is like, I think we're in that part of diminishing returns where it's like not a lot of original idea. It's very difficult to make an original idea, and that's a game, and no one's ever done this before.
Yeah, I think it's why you get a lot of weird shit nowadays. Like games that you look at, you're like, who the fuck came up with this? And like, why did you just throw a bunch of random things at the wall? This doesn't look good at all, because they're trying to make something original. And so I think that's why we're getting a lot of like weird stuff. But like I don't think games, to be clear, I don't think games deeply inspired by, like, I think Eliza P, like it flies, if you will, close to the sun in a lot of ways, but it's so original in so many ways as well. Particularly its world space, that I think it's fine, but it's very clear what its inspirations are. That's different, I think. That's a different story of like, you're clearly deeply inspired by a group of developers and want to make something like that, versus Palworld, which again, like the monster design, I just,
come on.
I always just say, like, even if you love the game, you have to admit it's fucking shameless. Like, it's just, it's not, I could never imagine, like, it's just fucking insane to me. Like,
absolutely.
Go get your bag, all that good shit, but like, it was unbelievable to me. But anyway, that's Palworld.
That's Palworld. So what we got? What we got next?
So we're on to number 4 of your top 5. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't even do my top 5. So we'll do number 5. Sorry, I'm commandeering this conversation. All right, so I was going through the list, and I actually really like my list this year. I feel like most years you and I overlap a lot, and I'm curious if we will as we get deeper into this list. But I don't know. I get this inkling that we will have very different lists, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. But number 5 is one that I did not I actually made fun of on this show, and then Laylee played it, and then I played it with her, and I actually ended up really liking it. And this is Halibut. Yeah, man. I gotta say that by name alone, you look at this and you'll be like, this is stupid, just like your boy did. But man, she fired it up lately and started playing it. And immediately, it started to win me over. It's a very charming game. No combat or anything, but you're on this. Think of like Bioshock a little bit. Like you're in this underwater city. Humanity has left Earth and they've gone to this new planet and they're pretty much colonizing this new territory. So it is a story a little bit about colonialism, because there's this company Allwater that's kind of like a megacorp taking over, and there's this other life form that's in this part of the ocean that now this colonialization is affecting. It's kind of a story about acceptance as well. Harold is not a normal guy, we'll say. You can tell kind of the inspirations for his character socially speaking. And I think that makes for a very different, interesting MC to see how he navigates the world differently from others. And again, for him to be accepted when he's like kind of just the janitor, it's not just him being a lovable goof. Like he's kind of the janitor for a reason. Like people think he can't do anything else. And so for him to kind of become the center of this whole thing and find friends and find, true purpose in his life is like a big part of the story. And it's really beautiful. What's also beautiful is this game started off as like a kind of stop motion or claymation project. And they spent like 12 years putting this thing together. Like they would put all these different pieces together and then like scan them into the game and then like rig the models. And like, that's how you kind of get this, I think a Coraline a little bit, like this sort of unique style of animation here in this game. And so it has a very unique look, a unique feel, a world that's kind of reminiscent of one maybe you've seen before. Like I said, I always draw it to Bioshock, but except like Bioshock when it was alive and well. But like neon lit underwater city, like your brain can only go, I feel like one place if you played a lot of video games. But yeah, it's a really beautiful game. It really is. The story is much more charming than I expected. The music is wonderful. There's a level of coziness to the game. When you're like spending some time with someone, you'll see like the camera pans out above the city a little bit. You'll see like time change as it comes down. They're still talking, and it kind of resembles like the idea of like when you're really spending time with someone you love, or just good time with friends. Like time flies, and it's just very seamless in that manner. It's like their first time doing a game, and there's a lot of stories like that I've noticed that have come out where, there's a game earlier this year that came out, I think in September, called like 1,000 Times Resist. And this was a game by a theater group that was, I think, trying to make a play or something along those lines. And it was during the pandemic. And so because everyone was separated, they decided to make a video game instead. So this is like one of multiple stories this year where a developer not really into making games found a way to make a game because they felt that art medium was the best way to communicate a particular vision. And I find that very admirable, right? Just the ability to dive in, figure it all out. Even in the case of Harold Halibut, taking like 12 years to do that. It's a really unique, different type of game. I thought I was kind of over these types of games, but this one just had so much charm, such a different MC from what you typically see in games that my man Harold won me over. It was a really awesome time. Of course, I love playing games with my wife, so that helped a lot too. But she adored the game. I adored the game. It was a really good time. So it made my top 5, surprisingly. I was very happy with that, though.
Very impressed. You've been waxing poetic about it. I still haven't got a chance to get to it. I remember you mentioned it, and I remember looking at it. I'm like, wow, this actually looks really cool. And yeah, very intimate feel, but it just seems like a lot of care with the design. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. You can see it.
Won't be for everybody, but like there's heart to it for sure.
Yes.
Again,
yes.
I really think of Harold. I'll just, again, you'll get kind of what I'm picking up, what I'm putting down when people play the game of like what type of main character he is. I don't want to ruin that for you, right. But it definitely, I think, makes him a lot more interesting, just because, again, it's really rare to see a main character portrayed in this way, and to see how he, again, fits in socially over time. It just strikes a chord with you. Like, I think it's very tough to do this kind of story, and I think they did it really well.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Halibut. All right. So we're moving up to number 4, now it's my 4. And again, this one is a bit of a surprise because, I haven't played this franchise in so long. And it was one of those things that, I'll be honest, when it was announced as the Xbox Game Show Showcase direct piece, there's a part of me that's like, okay, this is a business decision. You now own the rights to said game. I get it. But there's a part of me that I was rolling my eyes and I'm like, man, I could have went to someone else. And I remember sitting in that theater watching the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 direct. And I'm like, hey, yo, Treyarch is cooking right now. Like, this seems like a true revamp. This feels like, yo, we put in enough time on this development cycle to give you a lot of features that are pretty exciting. And at first it starts with the omnidirectional movement. I was just really blown away with that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, getting back to the essence of campaign, getting back to, let's put out what Matty considers a true campaign. You know what I'm saying? I've been away. So last year's Call of Duty, I'm like, hey, I haven't played Call of Duty in a while. Let me see what's going on. You guys are offering it. Let's see. All right, this is all right. And you guys are like, God, that's nothing. That's cannon fodder. If you're excited by that, you haven't seen anything yet. I'm like, all right, I've been away from Call of Duty for damn near a decade, or whatever it's been. So to play this campaign and be literally on the edge of my seat, seeing the variety, I think the time period is awesome. During Gulf War and all that stuff, and Clinton and Bush, and all these monumental figures. But graphically, this game is a looker. And I'll be honest, like, their campaign, in my opinion, can go toe to toe with a standalone single player campaign that didn't have, all the other bells and whistles of a multiplayer. So I thought that was phenomenal. I mean, is the game perfect? No. I mean, it's still, for the hardcore guys, that there's always going to be a nitpick here and there. But as a guy who has not played Call of Duty in years, coming into it like, okay, this is the necessary evil as part of the deal for them to survive, and we know why they did the deal is for Call of Duty. We get it. But man, that was a good ass Call of Duty game. Yeah, I was blown away, man. And obviously you got the other additive pieces with zombies, and then obviously the multiplayer. But where it really took it for me to the next level, I ain't gonna lie, because they teased me on ILP. That meat shield, bro. Like, when they added that damn meat shield, and I could whisper sweet nothings in your ear while I got you and create such a hilarious. It took me back to the toxicity of the 360 era that I came from. Yeah, and I'm from there. I was forged in fire, bro.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, the way they lean into that is the most commendable thing about it. Is like, they spent so long trying to be like, no, be nice, and I'm like, it's Call of Duty, bro. Like, you make so much money. There's so many players. Like, you're gonna have toxic people either way. Like, it's no doubt. So I love that they leaned into it. I thought that was
brilliant. It. Because to me, it's like, you have your pulse on, what type of game you are. And I love that they leaned in it. So shout out to Treyarch, man. I really was impressed. The support seems to be, continuous. I got to get back in there, because obviously, my rivals have been taking, my people over here have been taking a lot of my time lately. But it is, man, Black Ops, I have to admit, man, it is really impressive. And I have to give them their kudos. I cannot believe I have a Call of Duty game on this list, but I could not deny it. Black Ops 6 did affect me that.
Yeah, I thought about it, but I haven't done the campaign yet. It's so funny. I had a moment of reflection. I know. I had a moment of reflection where, like, for example, I hadn't played Blood and Wine yet. Someone in the comment section made fun of me. They're like, you played Veilguard, but not Blood and Wine. And now this, like, I played MW3, but not Black Ops 6. And what happens is I play, for my job, such disastrous fucking games that I want nothing to do with the genre. After, like, fantasy RPGs, miss me until Avowed. Right.
I get you. No, I get you.
Or like first-person shooter campaigns with explosion, miss me until I don't know when.
No, you need to cleanse your palate, because you just went through it.
And but the thing is, it's not even that reason, but that's just like, that lives with me way longer. I'm realizing, I'm like, I need to play more good games. Like, I really do. I always say that you'll become a more informed creator and, like, what your tastes are by playing some mediocre shit. Yeah. But, like, this year especially, like, a lot of the stuff I was looking most forward to ended up being very mediocre, as I've documented many times. But, like, yeah, you talking about the campaign, I'm like, yeah, this would normally be like, dude, a Raven software campaign. Raven, I always, like, rave about. I defend their honor constantly. I'm like, they are one of the best developers in our industry. Just no one knows about them. And then Treyarch, who I've always said since World at War, I'm like, I've always been a Treyarch guy. I've always been marching to that beat. I'm like when people were like COD 4, I'm like, no, World at War. Like, because to me, it was the aesthetic. It was like the gore. You know, when you took out the Browning and you lit someone up, you saw like half their body just blow apart. Like, I love the World at War. And like that really, anytime Treyarch Call of Duty came around, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 1, I was like, dude, they just don't fucking miss. Like, they're just amazing, right?
Same.
And so, yeah, Black Ops 6 is like got my name written all over it. And I mean, I played a lot of multiplayer. I didn't like zombies much though.
Yeah,
that was the other thing that kind of pushed me away. Yeah, a lot of people love the return to zombies. They're like, oh, it's round based, it's great. But when I played, I was like, these maps suck. Like, like both these maps I played pretty extensively. I'm like, I don't like either of them, frankly. But
bro,
tis just me
on that campaign, bro. It is so short. It is so short. You'll be done. You'll be done in a day. It is so short. I know you're going through your little cleansing period.
Well,
but you owe yourself this one. It is that, bro. It is that good. It is edge of your seat. Yo, these levels are fun, bro. Like I'm telling you, and then the acting and graphically, you're like, oh my. So it's beautiful combination of graphics, great storytelling, action pack, great level design, great variety. True stealth on some mission, bro.
Yeah,
it is so you. That's why I'm like, it's killing me. It's breaking my heart that you ever got a chance to at least get in there, because I'm like, bro, you're gonna love it, and it's not gonna dominate all your time. You'll knock it out very shortly, man.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other night about what I'm gonna play over break, and I'm very attracted to the long haul. I've just noticed, because every game I have on my list is like a long fucking game. And I said, I just need to like focus on some short experiences and get that satisfaction, that rhythm of just like lining them up, knocking them down. Because with how much video games I do play,
yeah, you play a lot.
I would be, I put at least a few hours in every night. Like, I would be technically knocking shit down constantly. But because everything I play is like 90 hours long, I'm never finishing things until like I go through a burst period where I finish like 4 things at once. Yes. Like that's what typically happens. Or you get in a situation like in Indiana Jones where it's just way longer than I expected, in a good, unfortunately, in a good way, in a great way even. But that is where my head's at going into this break, or I guess by the time people are listening to this on this break, is I'm like, like there's just a lot of games that, like I want to play Arkham Shadow, like that is 10, 15 hours, like that's one I can line up and knock down, like Call of Duty campaign, line up and knock down. But it's also like the one time a year, it's like, you can play anything you want.
Yeah, I know.
No limits. You are a teenager once more.
Once more.
And so I'm like, I can tackle the big dogs and just get them done in time.
That's
so
true.
I literally, as of this moment in time, I have a list of games that I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to tackle this. I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, I Call of Duty is I'm going to put it on my list. I'm going to put it on my list right now, because it is something I want to at least consider,
bro.
All things at the end of the day, but I just I'll read you my list here.
Let me hear the list.
Yeah. So what I got right now is Trails Through Daybreak 2.
Oh boy.
Now that's halfway done. Remember, I started that back in August. Okay. Yeah. So I'm halfway done with that. So it's really not as long. Disco Elysium.
Oh wow.
Right. Like that's one I never played, but I know you raved about it.
Wow. You love Disco.
Yeah. Deus Ex is like a classic the first one that I've never played. But people were like, you'd love this, Matt. Classic. Death Stranding, what I played of that game, I fucking loved. I was like, I want this.
You came around.
Black Ops 6. I'm like, that's a great slate of games right there. I did want to finish Final Fantasy 14's base story too. It was just like, it's too much good shit, man. I don't even have on this list games that came out in December, like Fantasian is really good, and like I want to play that.
What you guys playing now? He's going crazy right now.
Addict, I'm guessing.
Oh my God. You guys, like talking to you guys sometimes it's really eerie, because it's like talking to the same person as far as tastes.
Yeah,
like,
dude, it's a JRPG, him and I are playing it.
Bro, Neil, he is waxing poetic on that. He's
it's Mistwalker. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not surprised. Like, it's like classic Final Fantasy. At least that's what it looks like. So yeah, it's like, I want to play that too. There's so many. I mean, the reality is I really do have the rest of December and almost all of January outside of Dynasty Warriors. There's not, and Freedom Wars Remastered, there's not much I'm really like hankering for, but man, dude, just like what a what is the list of games I'm looking at? I'm like, oh my God, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting to that point where I have to accept all of these won't get beat. But I was like, I know you can do it, Matt. I know you can do it. But everything's so long nowadays. That's what,
I know.
not to take us off track, but that's what's so interesting to me. Like when I was reading comments on the Outer Worlds 2 trailer, a lot of people were like, I hope there's more. First game was so like content weak and light. I was like, I love that the Outer Worlds 1, by the way, this is like, they're talking, I guess, launch content, but I love the Outer Worlds 1 was like 30 hours and highly replayable. I'm like, I love a good, palatable, replayable RPG. That's KOTOR to me, man. That's Jade Empire to me. That's Mass Effect 1 and 2.
Absolutely.
Like that is what makes those games special is you can just run them so often and play them so differently. And for people to be like, no, I want Outer Worlds 2 to be bigger. I'm like, why do you want this game to be like 70, 80 hours?
Exactly.
Like, I don't get it. I will happily take that, but because I love the Outer Worlds, it's a top RPG for me. But good God, man. Like,
I agree.
30-hour RPGs that are replayable are like icky now. I don't know.
I know. Bro,
I'm
with you. I'm from that era as well. I think a lot of it is just bloat and marketing. And a lot of these games can be so much shorter, but the gamer is conditioned that more hours equals more value. And I'm just like, that is not necessarily true on that proposition.
Unless those hours are good, then it's value, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. So that's your number 4, Black Ops 6. For my number 4, got to bring it back to the classics, right? This is one of my most anticipated games of the year. Didn't make like a top 10 list. It had some issues. It felt very old at times, but for a Game Pass to get, you love to see this here. You love to have this on the list here. We're talking Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes.
Nice.
Yeah, we're getting back to that Suikoden bag, man. I really enjoyed this game. The dungeon design at times was a personal hell. I will just throw that out there. Like there are times they have like so many puzzle mechanics plus random encounters. And I was like, oh my God, this is old feeling in the worst way, because that is the thing that we got away from with a lot of these games. Like random encounters are fine. Like Octopath Traveler still does it, but no one complains. Why? Because they don't have like the most confusing puzzles with huge sprawling dungeons mixed in. Like those 3 cannot coexist. Otherwise you just have a level of frustration ready for the player, at least in my experience. But some people love that. That's classic energy to them. They're like, yes, grind my ass down. But for me, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, I love that it gets that Suikoden essence. As someone who's not played much Suikoden, I played Suikoden 2 for a few hours when I was in college, and I was like not as appreciative of it as I would be now. And now I'm just like, I've been waiting for that Suikoden remaster, or remake, I should say. But Eiyuden is like my first experience with that, and I just loved how many characters were recruitable, how mechanically deep all of these boss fights were. Like they all had their own little gimmick in them that made them really fun, like different spell books you'd use, different parts of the arena you would target, very interactive, different boss fights that, again, I think made it really fun to play. On top of that, the recruitable nature of this game made it really fun. Like, you had over 100 different characters to bring into your army, and each of them had their own little story, their own little side quest that rolled them in. The visuals were beautiful, kind of had that HD 2D art style, like very reminiscent, which I love, just seeing that mixture of old and new. So the music was also great. I love the kind of castle building section. It's just, it's wonderful, man. Like it really is a great return to the classics. Fully voiced, by the way, which I didn't expect, which was really cool. And I know this is a game that Xbox got for Game Pass, I think 2-3 years ago. Like they've had it announced for day one for a while, but I think it's a really great pickup. I love that they invested a lot into JRPGs on Game Pass. I hope it's showing some sort of ROI on them because they keep doing more and more of them. So I'm assuming maybe they're getting a little bit of kickback on that. But Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is like the type of game I've always wanted on Game Pass. I'm happy to see it there. And Xbox doesn't shy away from this. They got like Octopath Traveler there. They got like the Somnium Files. Like they added these games there. But in terms of like 2024 releases, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes being day one was significant to me. I had a good time with it. And so, yeah, number 4.
I love it, man. Great choice. Yeah, that was something you got to champion, them doing that one. And shout out to my boy C-Unit, Chris Willows again. He goes so hard for that game. He goes so hard. Yeah, man. Great choice. I like it. All right. So now we up to what, number 3?
Yep, top 3.
All right, top 3. We locking in. And yeah, man, look, for me, I'm all about proper expectation. I'm a proper expectation. I can see something and I could be like, oh, this is going to be one of those.
Mm.
Then I get the news on what it actually is. And I go, oh, okay. So after I got over my initial disappointment on what this game actually is and the hour length, because I was a little disappointed there, I have to admit, I fired this thing up. And still, I fired it up yesterday just to remind myself, like, let me play it again just to make sure I'm still locked in with my thought process. And I still am, man. I mean, Hellblade 2 is still
I got
one of
him
my
down
favorite
it.
games
Let's
of
go.
this year.
That's step one.
No, you have to. Sometimes you got to check yourself to say, okay, are you being a prisoner of the moment, or is it something that this is still resonating with you? And the reason why it's still resonating with me, because one thing about me is I like when the genre is a new genre is created. That's one. I always love it. If you create a new genre and no one else is doing what you're doing, I'm going to be a fan of you off top, right? But then the other thing is, okay, from the first time I saw you to the next time I saw you, what did you really do? And I think for me, I get it. I never looked at Hellblade as like the title as like, yo, this got the best combat I've ever seen. This is a video game in the pure video game gameplay sense. I've never looked at Hellblade like that. Hellblade was always like, yo, what is going on? What am I processing? What is she hearing? What's real and what's not real, right? And once I got into that bag, I'm like, that's why I love this. So for me, Melina Juergensen's performance is still amazing to me. For me, when I look at this game, I go, this is the future of where games could be, right? Now, is it perfect? Absolutely no. I'm not going to say it doesn't have any flaws, and I totally understand the content from people saying, hey, I was just hoping more
additive here is
things.
actually them coming from Melina.
Yeah, coming from Melina right now. They like, yo,
they're arresting her and saying, we got it wrong. It was Luke Roberts, actually.
The timing of that was hilarious. I was like, why they doing me like this? You got me on that. That was funny. So like, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, man, this not only this performance, but as far as where games are going. And to me, I look at this thing and I remember I just finished playing other games and other things. And I'm like, this is technically the best looking thing and the best sounding thing I have still ever heard. From the moment you get on that beach and you have to deal with that captain. And I sat there and I'm just like, wow, this is extremely immersive. This to me is the next level of where games could go. And where I look at it is like, okay, now we have to talk about her in the world. Again, my major beef with Hellblade 1, and I know this is I'm probably minority in this, but my major beef with Hellblade 1 is that even though the story was dope, I didn't like the fact that I didn't really see her interact with anyone else. That kind of bothered me a little bit in the sense that, like, I know what the story is and the loss and all the figurative things that have gone on with her, with Senua. But to me now, the evolution of Senua is her actually interacting with people. And I love that aspect of them with the captain that eventually, light spoiler, gets to your movement. The other gentleman, forget his name, who actually now looks to her almost as a sage. And there were about 3 or 4 moments in this game where I was just blown away. The Il Tiger fight was insane to me. Obviously the classic thing that we saw from the showcase, with the arrows and you're fighting the giant, classic. And my only issue is just that, man, this game just so damn short. I was just like, man, I just want more of it. And I hope they take the feedback. But for me, it's still a spectacle. It's the ultimate in immersion. It is ultimate in where video games can go. And look, shout out to Digital Foundry, who literally agrees, with me as far as from a technical standpoint, from an audio standpoint, from a graphical standpoint. Shout out to the Game Awards who actually agree with me in terms of her performance and in terms of what next level, audio design in games could be. And I by far still think that this is a lesson on psychosis and how a person can graduate to conquer their demons. Is it perfect? No. Is there flaws? Yes. If you say, hey, gameplay regressed, I can't mess with it, Cog. I wanted them to iterate more on combat. Absolutely. I won't take that away from you. But to me, I have to shout out a studio, in my opinion, that punched above its weight and has the most impressive technical product that I have ever seen versus studios triple the size of them. I have to celebrate that. And for me, I'm super proud of what Ninja Theory did with that.
Yeah, definitely Hellblade 2 is an interesting technical test bed that I'm curious how it affects the rest of Xbox game studios. Like, I feel like they learned a lot of knowledge, they gained a lot of knowledge, I should say, that they can pass on to other Unreal Engine 5 developers. That I think it's a big reason even maybe why a lot of Xbox studios moved to Unreal Engine beyond like just that extra public level of support, easier to hire for. You have a company that did lead the charge on the best looking game ever. And how can you help other games get to that level? They have their own mocap studios and stuff. They have like all these different things that the rest of the Xbox game studios can kind of lean into. So I feel like Ninja Theory can kind of find themselves in a Coalition-esque pocket of sort of, like Coalition was always serving that support role as they finally got to E-Day.
Right.
I feel like Ninja Theory might end up more like that than what I anticipated them originally being acquired for, which is like, hey, this is your Naughty Dog competitor. I was like, no, I was so fucking wrong about that. Right. But when it comes to like tech, like, yeah, very impressive stuff there.
If, like I said, it's rare that you see that. Well, it kind of shows signs with the first one, because the first one was super impressive, right? We're like, yo, how big? Yeah, we're like, how big are they? Like, that's crazy. And I think I know what it is, Matty. I know I go crazy because I'm from the era where the vertical slice is always a lie.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm from that era where
that existed even in my time, man. That was Ubisoft, Thief.
Bro.
There's a lot of games coming to mind there, yeah.
I remember Killzone, what is it, PlayStation 2 or 3 or whatever it was, and I was like, oh my.
I think it was.
Yeah, remember? I was like, oh my God, gaming is this?
Yeah.
And then we like, damn, we found out that was none of that. Yeah. Like that. And this was the one time I'm like, hey, yo, this is that. And super impressed. Like that is what blew me, because you always wait for, all right, they had to, this is the BS. This is not what the game. Mm-hmm. This is what they showed. That was some really pristine cuts and stuff like that. And I think that's why I'm so impressed with that aspect from them. And it's like, still to me, they're still a little studio in my mind. Maybe, yes, they got bigger, but they're not what their competitors are, kind of thing. So I want to give them their flowers on that. And hopefully they do take the feedback, right, from my boy Matty and Gene, and say, look, now that's nice that you guys push the genre forward, right, in terms of a technical standpoint. But now let's get back to more game, right? Because I think that's the controversy here. People are like, okay, that's cool. Iterate more on the combat. Hey, make it more than just walking around and being immersed in what she's doing. Also, let's gamify this more, because then you're going to get people like you more on board with what the vision is. And I think that's a fair criticism.
Yeah, it's their attempts at gamifying were just bad, in my opinion. Like the focusing on the totem poles and stuff. I'm like, this is not good. Like, this is not good enough. I'll talk about them more later.
Yes, I know you will.
Yeah.
So I had to get mine out now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Top 3 for me. All right, so we're at number 3. Art History Untold. This game is super addicting. I had a lot of fun playing it. This is a genre I think needed some competition. I think Xbox invested in a lot of interesting games for PC this year, some of which I didn't get to. Like, I had my choice between Art History Untold and Frostpunk, because these two extremely addictive, time-eating games dropped right next to each other. And so I wanted to, check out Ara, because I haven't played a civilization style game quite like it since. And dude, I immediately got that bug of just like, oh man, like one more turn. Admittedly, I didn't even play around much with its defining features in multiplayer, like the simultaneous turn mode. Like, I always enjoyed playing these games just solo. And I'll even say that I was surprised by how low some of the review scores were for this game. I thought artistically, it was really impressive. The ability to, obviously, like you'd expect these Civ games, pull out, see the whole map, but zoom in and see these civilians, your soldiers, all in real time, all having their own little cycles. It made the places you were taking care of feel very real, which was effective for me. So I love that extra level of detail, but it was a really I love how they tried to kind of mix in like RTS elements on top of the city building stuff, where like you can go to war and like there's full on fights, and you can like build up that army more and more. Like you could build up an army and get a military victory in Civilization. Like again, the last Civ I played in full was, I guess, really 6. I played with some friends online, but it was 5 that I played a decent amount of, famously, that campaign. And I was like, I cannot do this. I have to uninstall. This is a dangerous game. But I really like how Ara kind of pose things when it came to combat with assembling your units, how you could create groups with them, big units within units. There was like a limit to that, and you kind of march them out, and you have to keep them relatively close by. Like, do you want to protect or do you want to go on the assault? Like, it felt very deliberate in whatever play style. Like I used to in Civilization just make things and just be like, all right, whatever. Like this will figure itself out. But really, our history Untold beckoned me to invest deeper in the mechanics I was already seemingly familiar with, and like learn more about like, what do I need to rise up that ladder? And that was important because if you did not get like enough prestige over time, you would get dropped out of the game. And so that kept you really trying to like dedicate to that play style. Like, okay, I'm going to go political, or I'm going to go philosophy or medicine or wherever it may be. And I'm going to dedicate to that because that's going to rise me up the leaderboards quicker. And obviously, as you would like make more progress, other nations would start to kind of kick and scream a little bit. They'd be like, okay, well, we're gonna cut off your trade routes. And it's like, well, hang on, like you can go and negotiate with them a little bit, try to sweeten the pot, give them some supplies or something like that, and like reopen those relationships and kind of serve as an economic powerhouse. I just really like that, combined with the leaders that they had. There were so many leaders, so you had a lot of different, if you will, play styles. And so I thought the game had a surprising amount of depth that I don't really feel got enough credit during that review cycle. Like, is it the best thing I played this year? No, but in the terms of like Game Pass, especially a PC Game Pass game where like Xbox and PC, I just think aren't quite there yet. I was very impressed with this game. I was very addicted to it. I played a decent amount of it and had a lot of fun with it. And so, yeah, I like to see that there was a good competitor, in my eyes at least, to Civilization that I was really hooked for. And I kind of learned, I felt I learned a lot about the genre through this game compared to any time I put into Civilization. Like Civilization assumes your intelligence, and that's good. I think Our History Untold lets you off the what's it called? The training wheels, as well. But it's not afraid to be like, do you want help? Do you know what this is?
I love that.
Fantastic tutorial system that really walks you through things, and you get an intimate understanding. You start to recognize like this genre is about getting ahead of your problems. It really is. And so I feel like that should be celebrated, that there's a game that, despite it being a crowded genre at times, this is a game that came in and like taught a lot of people about it and how it works. And that takes, I think, true masters of the craft. So despite its lower review scores, I really liked Our History Untold and would recommend it to people who are looking for that kind of RTS city builder kind of hybrid. It's a really fun time. I enjoyed it a lot.
Nice choice. Yeah, man. I remember we got a chance to cover it. And again, as a person that doesn't play a lot of those type of games, I have to say, like, yeah, like it was very refreshing to see the game kind of say, okay, we could stay on top of this. But again, if you need some help here, or maybe you might want to do this, you don't have to listen to them. But I love the fact it was there, because those type of games sometimes get intimidating for me.
Yeah, sure.
So I did like that. Yeah, salute to that. I like that choice. Salute to them. So now we up to number two, right? We did.
Yeah.
So my number 3 was Hellblade. Now number 2. Now we get to the final 2 games I really had to think about and say, okay, what was the top? And number 2, man. I can wax poetic on this one so long. This was definitely the surprise for me for the year. I would say this is definitely the most unique game I've played this year. And Kunitsu-Gami, Path to the Goddess, baby. This is my number 2 game.
Not number 1. Interesting. I'm so curious now.
Yeah. This is tough because it literally could have been. It literally could have been number 1.
Sure,
yeah,
I'm surprised. I'm very interested.
Oh man, extremely risky project from Capcom. To the point where, and again, we did a great Sacred Symbols Plus with me, Colin, and Hogue. And, even Colin talking about like, hey, man, if it wasn't for Xbox, this game wouldn't have got across the finish line. They didn't have the funding to create a lot of stuff. And this was a huge deal because from a risk standpoint, there's no other game. They consider it a Kagura game, right? And again, it's this mix of you control your character in real time, but then you have the turn-based and the RTS aspects to it. And the game is literally a work of art. The developers, when they're creating the stages, they made physical dioramas and they crafted that. And that's the angles that are used rotating around a real thing that they crafted for each stage, right? So you got that aspect. Then you have the aspect of the monster design where, again, you're going into Japanese culture, going into Japanese horror. You go into the aspect of what I consider the Kagura game, which is the goddess itself. She's going through, she's purifying. Everything about this game is beauty, art, culture. When you talk about the actual protector of the goddess, so, the design, her sword strikes are almost like a ballet, like a dance. The combos are like a dance. When the villagers, you free them from the corruption and then you assign them roles. When they're doing their roles, they're doing like a dance. Like this whole thing is pure art. There is nothing like this game. And then the music is subtle, but it's tribal. It's amazing. There are some difficult spikes that towards the end it can get a little rough. There's a lot of replayability in the fact that like you can go back in the game to get extra. I mean, do a stage over to get extra resources and stuff. But where the game really won me over was when I'm doing all this stuff and it's turn based and all this stuff, and it's, I think Colin said it best. Like each stage, you're like, what are they gonna want me to do next? Like they changed the gameplay mechanics so much where you're like, okay, now I got to control only the villagers. Now it's they took this person away. Like it's just so well designed, and they keep you on the edge of your toes. So yeah, I think where it really they up their game is when I fought the bosses. The bosses are so different and so unique and stuff like that. Yeah, ton of replay value. And last but not least, for those who still want to continue to go, if you beat it, you're fine. But I like that they added a little touch to the new game plus to get you what they consider a true ending. And one of the, the game was special when there's not one voice acted word in this game.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But it tells an amazing story. So shout out to Kunitsu-Gami, shout out to Path of the Goddess. Man, I will fight people in the street with this one. I thought I was fighting for Hellblade. I'm fighting people in the street for Kunitsu-Gami. But I love this game, truly. And more people should play this game. I really feel that they should be rewarded for this one.
Yeah, you guys have really been advocates for both you and Colin, but especially you, dude. It is another one that just got buried in a very busy time of year, and it sucks to hear that the game ended up not performing as well as it could have. Capcom didn't really give up on it. They said they're going to continue to market it. I'm sure they're going to continue to put it on sale, and hopefully it finds that kind of cult classic following. But to their credit, we thought after what happened with Kunitsu-Gami that Capcom would maybe shy away from these sorts of things, but they went ahead and greenlit an Okami sequel and Onimusha. And Onimusha, I guess, is a less of a risk, but Okami? Like, you kidding me? So, I'm a little relieved that we're still going to get maybe this sort of essence from Capcom moving forward, even if it's not Kunitsu-Gami. Would you say it felt very, with the true ending and everything, did it have a sense of finality to it? As in, like, if there wasn't a sequel, obviously you'd be sad, but would you still be okay knowing the story is done?
Yeah, it did, because without spoiling, there's a little bit of sadness with the reality of the ending. And I was just like, man, I was like this, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, all right, that's just how it's going to go. But when I saw New Games Plus, and I'm like, oh, okay. And yeah, it could theoretically end with just that. And if they say they never made another one again, New Game Plus is enough to say, okay, I can ride off to the sunset with that one. Okay. I'm cool.
Cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, just because I think people listening to this, obviously they're trying to find these games to try out. And series like that, I always find particularly daunting because you don't know if there's like a future in it. And so if it like, that's why I always tell people, they're like, why haven't you played Half-Life yet? I'm like, I refuse until Half-Life 3 is real, because I'm not putting myself in the same position everyone else is in, where you get cliffhung and you're like, oh, now I get to wait. It's like, I'm not in that mindset. I don't have to be in that mindset. I know these are some of the most important first-person shooters ever, but I remember deliberately when I was in the middle of Half-Life 1, learning about Half-Life 3 not being a thing, and it's been a meme for a while, and I stopped. I was in high school. I stopped dead in my tracks. I was like, I'm not doing that to myself. Why would I? So for some people, I feel like they're like me. They look for that future investment. So it's good. It's not setting up a sequel that they'll never get, because I think that's a personal form of torture.
Yes. Fair enough.
All right.
So what you got, number 2?
Number 2 for me goes to a series I think we all know I have a lot of love for. But I mean, Xbox did a really great job this year just targeting these sorts of games, these sorts of gamers. It is a remake, and it is Persona 3 Reload.
Yes.
This game, man. Come on. I mean, Persona 3 is such an important video game, historically speaking. You know, if you love what Atlas is doing now, it's something like Metaphor. You really owe it to this game. Specifically, I mean, the original Persona 3. When you look at Persona 1 and 2, it kind of had that Fallout moment. You know, if you look at Fallout 1 and 2 and you look at 3, you go, I wouldn't blame you if you looked at these and went, they're totally different series. Like, they just went through complete overhauls. Persona 3 is honestly like the most truest to the core of what I think Persona was always supposed to be, which is like this mixture of like social lives, but also very grindy, very difficult. It wasn't always, I think, this extremely flashy series until 5. Because even 4 is just like amazing in vibes and coziness alone. But like 4, like dungeon wise and stuff, I mean, it was a PS2 game, so it was like limited in that sense. But even on Vita, like they didn't go crazy with the new stuff they added in there. So I really think if you love anything about Atlas, you owe it to this game. And to kind of go back and remake it, well, I don't agree with every choice they made. I think there were some decisions, like, for example, Tartarus being still like a 200 plus floor grind instead of doing what I think was obvious. And that's like taking those, because like Tartarus is broken up into blocks. So just breaking up those blocks into palaces, basically like a Persona 5 level dungeon, and just running through that, I think would have been way better of a change by like a country mile. But I respect a remake that stays close to the original vision. It's the first Persona game fully voiced top to bottom. Every social link, every rank, usually like you see it in Metaphor, ranks 1 and 8 voiced, but otherwise nothing else. This game though, fully voiced top to bottom. And it really is a difference maker with how much reading you're doing. The remixes, I always think remixes are a dangerous play. For example, Sonic X Shadow Generations did like a remix for Westopolis from the Shadow the Hedgehog game in 2005. And I just think it's like change for the sake of change. It doesn't sound as good as the original. And I get you can't just reuse the original, but it's just not as good. And it just reminded me that sometimes games that try to go back to that nostalgia well, and they do a remix on something you love, can just really get away from the essence of it. But man, dude, I really think I prefer the remixed soundtrack for Persona 3 Reload over the original. There's a purity to the original. I actually have both in my Spotify writing playlist. So like, you know, I'm good either way. But yeah, this soundtrack is special, and it's a game about death, man. Like I just think the themes in Persona are everything. And so like, while 4 is like the truth, 5 is justice, 3 is about life and death. And so everyone kind of has their own personal grief, which makes this a deeply personal story. But it pretty much takes the entire combat system from Persona 5 Royal and puts it in 3 Reload, which, like, even if you hated everything about this game, 3 Reload's undoubtedly just fun to play. It is just the baton passing, the once more system, everything. The new, I'm forgetting the name of the new attack where you can like, it's beautiful though. The like personal, I call them like ultimate attacks off the top of my head. They have a name for them, but just everything about this game is just really polished and shined up. And they nailed it with it. It was a really, really good remake. And so, yeah, that puts it in the number 2 spot. It's awesome to have a game like this on Game Pass where you can finally point people, at least for a year, and be like, hey, are you interested in this sort of thing? Go check it out. Like, and this is a really great example of it. Just like that social gameplay rhythm, hanging out with people. I do wish they changed some of the social links a little bit. Some of them are still kind of like whack. But
in what way? Why you feel whack?
Because like some of them were just like, oh, go to like the library and like hang out with like these 2 old people, and the story doesn't really move because it was their first time doing social stuff. Like the Persona community jokes that the main protagonist's name is just I don't care, because all the responses they have are still the same from the original game, where your character will just like 1 word or 2 word everything people say, like, okay, anyway, like, or all right, that's whatever, or sounds good. Like your character just doesn't give a fuck. Like it's so funny compared to how more thoughtful I think Persona 5's dialogue is. So there's some things I would have adjusted for sure with 3 Reload. It's honestly still in the scheme of things not the ideal. I remember I was looking for the grand unifier. How do you take like original Persona 3 and Persona 3 Portable and Persona 3 FES and bring them together? This game I don't think serves as that. It's just like more of a loyal remake of 3 FES. Now you have the DLC that adds in the answer. So yeah, man, just what a time though. Love Persona. Easy top 2 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I knew this was coming, right? Yeah. It just, again, I just look at it as the OGs, and you guys walked for me to allow for me to run with metaphor. You know what I'm saying? All of this is foundational stuff. And when you start talking about one more, and you start talking about, mechanics and everything has been an iteration. Everything has been a level up, and the social links. I mean, I'm starting to see now like games Persona has become so influential. I'm starting to see other games. I mean, we talk about incorporate that into their stuff. We talking about the Turtles had social.
TMNT having social.
We like like people are personifying their games.
Yeah,
and that's the result of Atlas and the OG, man. Salute to that. I like that choice. I like that.
All right, so what's the number 1? The best Game Pass game of the year for COG in 2024. I thought this last one was it, but
I know.
Here's what you pick.
I thought so too. But yeah, look, it's rare that when I see something off top, I should say it's rare, but usually I have a good intuition when I see something off top, I'm like, that's it. And this was that. This game, when I said, that's my number 1 draft pick. I just see it. I see what's going on. And I'm like, nobody's not getting it yet. And I'm like, I see it clearly. And I get it. There was a lot of controversy, on a design choice, a game design choice. And I said, nah, man, if they pull this off, Machine Games could immortalize themselves even further. And I have to admit, from an immersive sim standpoint, as a person who does not have this emotional connection to Indiana Jones Connect. Like I remember being young, I saw, the movies, your mom or somebody take you to one of the movies, your dad or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this was fun. But like, I was never the guy like Indiana Jones is so awesome. I love every movie. It was just one of the things to do for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't rank it over like a Back to the Future or whatever. Like there's certain things of the 80s that, don't get me wrong, it was iconic in that time, but it wasn't for my iconic thing. It was just something to do. So when I get it, I watch it, and it first starts with, the look of the game. And I just said, okay, this is extremely cinematic, right? And how are they going to conquer, for the people who don't like first person, how are they going to conquer this? How are they going to get through? Because we know Machine Games as the Wolfenstein, fast-paced, shoot 'em up, balls to the wall type thing, and obviously I love Colossus and all that stuff. I love that. And I know that you could do story, and I know you could do villains. But can you do an indie game, right? And I think that's where Todd came in, and Todd gave them the direction. Okay, this is what we're going to do, because this game on its own, if you did not tell me that there was a movie, you could have fooled me and said, this is based on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the movie. They literally created what's the word? A canon thing, right? Within that did not exist in that timeline. And I thought it was I thought the choice going right with the Temple of Doom as the start was extremely bold. I thought from a technical standpoint, they have pushed the genre. But for me, the main thing, immersive sim, but I have to admit, my favorite thing in this game is puzzles. Really being able to interact with a cog, being able to interact with a bottle, being able to physically implement and do actions that affect the game world. And I just thought it was genius. And look, even the combat, it took a while at first, I admit. I was like, I don't know, man. First person with the hands, I don't know how that's going to work, bro. And that became a dance, parrying with a left bumper, hitting with the opposite hand, feeling like a boxer, getting into the little pit fighter kind of thing clubs and getting busy with that. Awesome. This is a love letter to Indiana Jones and the essence of what the character is. And I think that I also think that not only does Troy, Baker doesn't get enough credit, the voice actor that played Emmerich Voss is absolutely outstanding. Commands the screen, the discoveries, the mysteries. They have so much love and care in their side quests that could go into the main quest in their side quests, kind of thing. And look, does it have its flaws? Of course. You know what I'm saying? If you play this as this super Splinter Cell, Metal Gear type game, yeah, it's very light on the stealth mechanics on that. So as far as the AI is concerned, of course, there's some flaws there. But I felt like even with that flaw, that did not negate the overall experience. The overall experience in being able to tackle things different ways, different paths. You can, crawl under stuff. You can approach things from different directions. You can get an outfit and meander through it and between the crowd, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. Bro, the game is so cinematic and so unique. And I think you said it best. You had the comment that really made me look at it in perspective, that it's like, I get it. There are people that's going to say, bro, should have did third person. And I think those people are missing the point, because if you are Indiana Jones, you are the OG. You are the person that Tomb Raider and Uncharted look to, right, as the inspiration for their characters. And now you come back and do a worse version of what they've already established. You're going to look crazy out here in these streets. You then took something that no one else is doing in this first person thing and now say, okay, we're going to interact in a way with a game and still show you enough of the character through climbing, platforming, and action that you still will be satisfied that you're going to see your man and be fine. And the last thing I want to say is this version of id Tech, oh my God, 60 frames, ray tracing. Oh my, this is an absolutely gorgeous game. And the fact that they got that on series, that's really like that. I'm like, oh my God, these guys are you do that, you are a sorcery as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, number one, and I knew it was because I couldn't stop playing. That when I'm smiling and I can't stop playing, that's what I knew. I was like, yeah, this is my favorite game from them. And final point, the replayability with the way they handled the skills, the adventure system, the adventure books, the book system, me being rewarded for going off the beaten path was a unique decision. And I actually like that they stood on that. And I'm a fan of that. So yeah, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, man, came in late, but definitely my favorite game on Game Pass this year.
Well, Cog, oh man, that's funny. Look at my number one here. It might be time for a new hum. I don't know, man. We can at least hum until it's on PlayStation.
Yeah, we can hum for a couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this is my number one as well. I love everything this game stands for. I really do. Like, I just, as you were kind of touching on, I love that it is so different from every other tie-in game that we have got previously. Like, to make it first person and focus on immersion was, again, it just chooses to do everything that would have been more difficult. And that's not an easy choice to make. But every step of the way, Indy's like, well, we should be third person. It's like, this is more marketable. It's like, who cares? Like, what's better for the game? And every choice I think that's made is for the better of the game. Like Cog laid out, I don't think like everything such as stealth pans out perfectly. But I mean, what I see here is something I was kind of thinking would be a one-off. And I'm like, can we figure out a series? Can we do something with this? Like, please, I want more of this, man. Like, I love Wolfenstein, and I won't get upset at all if Machine Games is like, we're going back for Wolfenstein 3. It's like, yeah, it's time to kind of wrap that up for sure. That's like their Elder Scrolls 6 in a sense. Like, they kind of got away. This was their Starfield. Now they're going to their Elder Scrolls 6, except things are going a lot smoother for them. But man, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, my soul needed this game. It did. I felt very robbed with Redfall. I don't think many games try to do what a Dishonored does, and I get it because the level design and AI complexities with it are very tough to take on. And Indiana Jones, honestly, well, it's not as deep as a Dishonored. It further complicates things because it has these big open hub areas that now have to include puzzles, and those puzzles are all pretty unique. And that was what I loved about the game too, Cog, was just like, I'm not a puzzle guy at all. But I had so much fun solving these because I think it was, number one, not the only thing you were doing in this world, but it was how you got there. Like, again, putting on that outfit, sneaking behind enemy lines, getting into this secret dig site and being like, okay, let's see if I can solve this here real quick, and getting some treasure at the end, getting some adventure points, cashing in on an adventure book. Like, everything was for the immersion. And I love that about this game. I think even if this were to be a commercial flop, I think Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is still like one of the most important games we've gotten in a while, because it just, does so many different and unique things. And it's going to be, I can see it. If it succeeds, it's like, hell yeah, more of this. If it fails, though, it's going to be like, people are going to talk about this, I think, for years and years of just like, look at this game, look what it did. We really got something special here. Didn't appreciate as much at the time when it first came out. It could become a Guardians of the Galaxy. It could be like, man, we didn't appreciate it enough when we got it. But I adored my time with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I thought the story was good. The way it slots in as a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark is just awesome. Awesome, man. And it's because you can see the heart there. And yeah, I'm glad to see, after a pretty rough 12 months for our man, Todd Howard.
Yeah.
It was nice to see him get a little bit of kudos for the Fallout adaptation that he was part of, and also this. And this game, in a time where I was wondering about my man, this game proved he is still a visionary.
Same thing.
Yeah.
This solidified his legacy, but I was worried of a fall off.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, the guard still got it. Sorry, I had to get up. I felt the same way. Yeah.
Normally, I would not give someone that much props, but Machine Games has made it very clear, like, this game was his vision. This was like what he wanted. He had the layout. He's had this idea for over a decade, like 15 years. He's had it for a long while. So, this was like his baby, and like Machine Games were kind of just working to kind of iterate that, make it better, that sort of thing. But this was his call the whole way through. And so it makes you wonder a little bit, just as a Todd Howard aficionado, if you will, it makes me wonder a little bit where his focus was, because I always say that when his focus is somewhere,
I get
you can feel it. And a lot of people are like, no. And I'm like, I still think this is proof that when he is focused somewhere, no offense to Starfield,
I know where you're going.
When he is focused somewhere, you can feel his touch. All Out TV show, Indiana Jones. Not just coincidentally because they are good, but because with something like a Starfield, this was more like he emphasized, like, it's a team project. He handed the reins to Emil, Will Shen. Like, this was a lot of handoffs, but note where the talk is on where he was heavily involved. He was on set a lot for Fallout.
Yes.
He was involved heavily with Indiana Jones. Again, not trying to over credit him. I don't want to take away from the hard work of the hundreds of people that have made this thing much better than it probably could have been. Todd Howard's initial vision may not have been perfect. We don't know the changes that were made. I don't want to take away from that. Valid. But just for me, as someone who's like a huge, like, I'm a fan of him, man. Like, like, even though I had the opportunity to talk to him and all that stuff multiple times, like, I'm still a huge fan. He's still a huge inspiration. And as a huge inspiration, I want him to always succeed, man. And like, that means that you gotta be real with a Shattered Space or something where I'm like, I don't know, man. But that's the thing, is like, no shot he was fucking involved in Shattered Space, bro. And a lot of people were like, man, Todd doesn't get it. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't get it on feedback. I think that's very clear. Just his response to Shattered Space was pretty terrible, I feel. But when it comes to like his hand creatively in something, I feel this is one of those moments I'm like, okay, he still got it. He still got it. Does that guarantee Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be nice? No, but, because you never know, right? But I just... this was definitely good to see for the soul, because again, a lot of the things I love this year really challenged me, as I'll get into later. And I thought that, again, Indy, I was like, I didn't process until after I rolled credits, and I'll just say I saw the ending. I was like, oh, this is such a fucking Todd Howard game, dude. Like, this is complete Todd Howard game. But yeah, just this is a great Game Pass game. you just, the amount of time you get to spend in this world, if you want to just run the story, you can, but you're really doing yourself a disservice, skipping on puzzles, skipping on those amazing side quests that they're called field work for those who are wondering. So when you see those pop up, go and do those. Like they're fully dedicated, like cutscenes and cinematics for these moments in the game. Like they're really well done. So
yeah,
it feels as important as the main story content, and it feels so natural. It feels like that wasn't just like, oh, we're going to overperform here. It just felt like this is as important as our main story. Let's make it so. And it kept the main story lean enough where it's fast paced, it's exciting, it's interesting. But if you want a little bit more to build some characters out, the field work things that you do really add to it. So yeah, just top 3 game of the year for me. Top Game Pass game easily. Just a phenomenal game. I'm really happy to see Machine Games still has it on the note of people who still got it. Because after Youngblood, there was a little bit of like, ooh, that was their what was that Bethesda marketing campaign that they ran about
Player One.
Save Player One. During the ironic Save Player One campaign, Bethesda put out multiplayer games in their worst single player games. And Wolfenstein Youngblood was a co-op shooter with microtransactions and weird power scaling. Like it was not a Machine Games game in any way, shape, or form, I feel. And I know it was co-developed alongside Arcane, but it was bad, dude. It was really bad. The same level of bad we were talking about for an Arcane Austin with Redfall, the same level of bad we were talking about with a 76. So Bethesda was in a weird spot there. And so every team has come out a little differently from that Save Player One stretch. And I'm happy to see that despite the time they've been away, Machine Games has recovered, has put out a real, like one of their best games. I loved it. Yeah. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, number 1 out of my top 5.
Well said. Yeah, totally agree.
All right. Well, now, Cog, we get into the worst of the worst. I only have 3, so I think if you've got 5, I want to hear you go back to back with 5 and 4, and then we'll bounce back and forth for 3, 2, and 1.
Well, again, so technically 3, 4, 5 will be my number 3 because technically I chose a different approach. And the approach was that, these technically did not exist. And thus my frustration, you know what I'm saying? Because for me, I really, really had my heart set on these 3 games that when they were announced to come out in Game Pass for 2024. And I'm like, man. And I'm always on the side of, okay, yes, you always give the developer more time. But these were touted. And we got to start with Replaced. I've been waiting.
So many delays.
So many delays. I got a chance to play this game. And I did say that, okay, yeah, they do need a little more time, a little more feedback, but the potential is great. So I was disappointed there. The second one that I played that I thought for sure was, going to come out this year again, Towerborn. Where were you, brother? Where were you? What happened?
You know what I mean? Nothing more. Yeah.
Nothing else. Yeah. So we didn't get that. And the one that really broke my heart because I'm like, man, this could be special was Alters. Alters. Like, damn it, man. Yeah. But again, in the sake of take your time, make the best game you can. I get it. But these 3 games were high on my list for 2024. So I was hurt that I didn't get at least one of those 3. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that represents number 3 for me.
Sure.
And then I'll get into the real other 2 that I didn't.
Cool. So that's like your version of Palworld. All right, cool. That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, there definitely was a few misses that I think would have lifted this year for Game Pass. Because again, as I mentioned here, all of my 3 here are from first party. And that is disappointing because that has not been the case for any other prior year. Granted, again, it is a top 3 instead of a 5, but I feel like Xbox should never really touch this list as far as I'm concerned. You are the representative of what Game Pass is. You should be always delivering, like when an Xbox Game Studios comes around, it should be like, this is a guaranteed banger. Now, this is less about the game and more about the quality of a game's launch, which I'm sure everyone knows now what I'm talking about. Number 3 goes to Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. This was such a easy slam dunk, man. You had a game that I frankly think in the first one, if you will, a few years ago, overperformed, did really well. People really loved it, reviewed extremely well, sold extremely well. And when we all learned that, we went, oh, they're going to do another interesting. You look, you see how popular it is, and you go, okay, all right, this makes sense. Like, and they're expanding the roles you can play and the different things you can do when flying and on the ground even. It's like, okay, I love the idea here. So you bite on, you go, this is an easy win for them. Like, and it just seems like with Xbox as of late, when we kind of go and do the hand wave and go, easy win, it's anything but. And so something like Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, which felt like, oh yeah, this is going to be a no doubter, meatball right down the middle, crank it 400 yards, easy. Instead, what we have is one of the worst game launches of the year, thanks to just servers that were not ready for launch. And I'm usually forgiving with that because during the live service era in like the mid 2010s, like you'd have a Division which came out and like, oh, surprise, like there's actually not ridiculous queue times, but then every other game, server issues, server crashes. And when you're Microsoft and you have access to Azure tech, you have access to massive server farms, this sort of stuff's unacceptable. But more unacceptable is that a game many times more popular than you launched later that year in, of course, Marvel Rivals, and it launched without a hitch. You can find matches instantly because of its player count, and it never crashed once despite 10 plus million players over 3 days. They were ready. And I can't just say, oh, well, it's Flight Sim. Maybe they were caught off guard. The first game was very popular. While it may not be, my term always goes to sexy game, right? It may not be the game you see ripping up your YouTube sub feeds. It may not be the game the hardcore gamers talking about, but these sim games are extremely popular, extremely desired, is what I've come to learn. And they have crazy player counts, especially Microsoft Flight Sim's like one of the leaders. So to come around and be this ill prepared for your launch is unacceptable. And also people are upset that this is so leaning into cloud tech that it's scaring people away from the vision of what Xbox and their kind of cloud tech vision is going to be. Because people are like, wait, no, this is like, I want more of the offline version of what the original game offered me. And much like you see with like a Payday 2 to 3, Payday 3 on paper was like, oh, sweet, cool, I can get down with this. And it comes out, the reality is people just want more of what Payday 2 is offering, and they go back to that. And you're seeing that a little bit with Flight Sim 2024. It's a shame because, again, this is such an easy win. I don't know how else to put it. It feels like from the outside looking in, it's really hard to fuck this one up. But I mean, I think they fucked it up in every way imaginable. And it's a shame because I know underneath a lot of this mess is a great game. But the reality is that you've kind of done irreparable damage to, again, the vision of what cloud streaming tech and video games mixed together can be, because people see, oh, this is like, no, I had today off. Like I wanted to play today, or I had this weekend set. I wanted to play this weekend. And for people to be in queues for like 12 hours or something like that.
Oh, insane.
I mean, substitute this game's name with Diablo, Call of Duty, substitute with any relevant name to core gamers, and think of the disaster this would be. The only reason it wasn't as widespread and probably didn't hit some people's radars is simply because it is a flight simulator game and people were like, who gives a fuck about that anyway? But many people do. The fact that it was making headlines at all, I think, said a lot. So the developers had to apologize multiple times. It was a mess, dude. It's unacceptable.
So good segue, because that was my number 2.
Take it away.
Yeah, look, so like, again, you said it perfectly. So this is a slam dunk. When we played the Flight Sim last, and we're like, okay, high reviews, the epitome of flight simulation, the technology being utilized with the map system and stuff like that. All they got to do now is just iterate on that. And then the reason why this really hurt for me is because, as much as I like the first Flight Sim and what it tends to do, the argument against Flight Simulator from a hardcore gamer perspective is people will say, like, yo, that ain't really a game, though. You know what I'm saying? They're like, yo, that's you playing in a course, and that's fine, if you want to go that route. So where they excited me when the announcement of this game was like, yo, we are going to take you to the journey of getting a license, but also you are going to be able to do really cool things. You're going to be able to do rescue missions. You're going to be able to do helicopter. You're going to be able to do VIP escorting celebrities somewhere on a private jet. You can get out the plane, right? You're like, yo, okay, you are now going to gamify things to make it exciting to the casual. For me, I'm the target audience now. And now you to get me in there. So again, I've been in this live service bag for a minute. I get it. Day one, you always get a mini pass on day one. I get it. But the decision to make the launch so cloud heavy, and it didn't seem to be tested thoroughly, or whatever stress server testing that you guys needed to do. I mean, maybe you should have delayed it, because at the end of the day, this did so much damage, right? But it's beyond just that. Now like, bro, I'm looking at these Steam reviews right now. This is awful. Someone was like, never in my 30 years of gaming and flight have I seen such an unfinished, buggy, complete pile of rubbish game. Flabbergasted at the lack of incompetence, the multiple bugs in career mode, teleporting. People said they did a 4-hour flight and then bug out or crash out when you're about to land. Oh. That's unacceptable. So look, I know the developers, are apologizing and they're putting out patches. I get it. But this is something that we've talked about in the past with Xbox. And, again, I don't want to just go crazy, but Flight Simulator 2024 represents like, bro, we can't launch unfinished products, so to speak. We can't launch things that have that stink on it, kind of thing. And you may have to delay. So yeah, this was sad because this should have been a slam dunk. This should have been a layup. This should have been, you are the easily 90 Metacritic game based because there's nothing else that really does what you do with the quality that you would detect. But the decision to launch this thing, whether it be with that cloud interface as queuing in, as opposed to an offline mode per se, you could see this definitely hurt it. So yeah, this was definitely a huge disappointment.
Absolutely. Well, that moves us into number 2. Speaking of disappointments, Hellblade 2.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah, what a fucking disappointment this game was, in my opinion, man. I love the first Hellblade. What an indie gem, of course. Cog really laid it out well earlier. It was just a game that came out as $20. Yeah, it was 6 hours long, but I mean, it looked like a lot of AAA games at the time. And a lot of us were like, how big is the team? You're like 20, 30 people. Like you did this, and it's this good and this well performed. And it moved the industry forward with like its sound design and just a perfect storm, man. What an incredible video game. But even removing yourself from that zeitgeist, it's aged really well. It was still, I don't think people gave it enough credit for how much of a game it was. Like a lot of combat. The combat was simplistic. It wasn't like it was DMC Devil May Cry from them earlier, but there was more there. And so moving into Hellblade 2, I mean, I remember like us covering this game so closely and being like, oh, they had their animators take fighting classes. Like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, I wonder how they're going to expand the combat. How are you going to make this game bigger, if anything at all? And then we hear that like, oh, this is going to be the same size as the first Hellblade game. It's like, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. This is a quick $40 game. We'll see what happens here. But it brought the expectations into check. I play it going, okay, what I'm hoping for here is an indie style gem that tells a really impactful story. But what happens is because of I think what the first game did well is there was no side characters, which was to its betterment because it was about Senua, and I got to know her story and her journey better. But what happens is now Hellblade 2 is subject to what a lot of games struggle with, which is not enough runtime to build up the characters around her and get this plot interesting. So by the time it feels like it begins, it ends. And it was, if I were to draw a comparison, and people will think this is aggressive, but I do like this game. It was very reminiscent of my time with the Order 1886, where I finished it. I was like, man, you just began. And I think worse yet, without spoiling anything, is that Hellblade 2 teases Hellblade 3. And I'm like, this is unnecessary. Like, this series does not need a fucking trilogy. It really could have been a one and done. But when you did a second one, I was like, all right, you must have had a vision. And it just felt like they brought a pair of scissors to that vision. Like if you made this game like I know an hour in Hellblade is clearly like multiple years of development. But if you made Hellblade 2 like an extra hour and a half, I think we're talking about, at least story-wise, narrative-wise, something a little bit different that could breathe more, develop more. But that combined with, I thought, just boring combat that also took away some of the special elements of the sound design. The sound design, to me, as I defined it in my review, became the yellow paint, except it was audio now. So instead of visually them kind of drawing yellow paint on surfaces and being like, you go there, that's your main path, right? Like every AAA game does. Instead, the whispers in your ear are like, up there, above us, in front of you, climb. It's like, it felt like I was being handholded through the entire experience, and it just started to rub me the wrong way within like an hour. I was like, oh my God, dude, like I'm so fucking on rails. This is unbearable. The combat feels so, again, like predetermined. The exploration is predetermined because there's very little of it. The sound design lost its special flair. And so what I'm left with is a game that I think could have been way better. Way better. Where I even struggle to recommend it as a Game Pass download. I'm like, yeah, you could beat this in a day, but like, is it time well spent for that day? I don't really think so. Like, I really thought that this game could have been so much more. I like Melina Juergens. I think she's a great performer. I think she fits really well with Senua. But even then, it was like, this is not enough to save. The performance is only elevated by the narrative you care about. Again, that's why I argue in defense of something like a Silent Hill 2. It's like Silent Hill 2's story was elevated by Luke Roberts' performance because it added to the storytelling in a level of like, not Senua fucking screaming her head off, but like Luke glancing at the bottle and kind of suggesting without ever writing a word on the script that James had an alcohol issue at one point. That's always my example I go to. And I think that's the difference in visual acting that has not been met yet with Hellblade 2, is that it's a great game and all. If you like it, you like it. But for me, I'm just like, this is not fun to play. The story doesn't go anywhere in a meaningful way. I don't feel that personal journey with Senua, like overcoming her demons. It felt like it was very rushed in that sense. And I get why it's a divisive game, because I'm like, this wasn't, I don't think this was convincingly great. I feel like it in a lot of ways was a huge letdown, and especially for the wait. Yeah, I know normally it's like, okay, leave that all behind. But I think for the amount of time that this game was in the oven, and for the expectations that were laid very clearly for us by Xbox, but also by Ninja Theory, and then quickly that kind of flip on a dime, like, oh, it's been like 5 years, but yeah, this is like basically the same game you bought, except it's actually smaller and not as mechanically deep. I'm like, what the fuck happened? You know, like, I get trying to get in on the tech, that's important, but what did you truly move forward outside of visuals? Because like, you were moving storytelling forward, which I think moved the art forward, moved the medium forward. You know, I feel like getting to Uncanny Valley level graphics is almost a fool's errand. And that's just a personal philosophy that plays nothing into my actual verdict of the game. I just think it's foolish. People are not going to want this in like 10, 15 years. Like, oh, I can step outside my house and it looks the same as the game on my screen. Like, games are escapism. They're art. I don't think we should always be it's again, a fool's errand to continuously chase games that look like real life. And while Hellblade 2 is extremely impressive in that regard, and no doubt, again, it'll be used to support other Xbox games moving forward, that's not going to do much for me, because it's not really... why do I care about an environment looking good if I can't go out and live in that a little bit longer than 5 hours, which is what my playtime was, which was, I think, an hour shorter than what Hellblade 1 was, which I also wasn't ready for. So I just found this game really disappointing across the board. Like, I really thought it could have been so much more. And it wasn't. And so now I'm not like worried for Ninja Theory, because they're going to be hanging around, I think. But I'm worried in the sense of like, okay, you guys are artistes, you're perfectionists. I can see that in your work, but it actually may have held you up. And now I need to know, what are you going to do with like a Project Mara? Is this going to be like the medium where I'm just walking through scary rooms, or is it what's the gameplay? I feel like we're in an interesting part of our industry where we're kind of picking a lane and riding it, and I can respect that, but that we're forgetting at times that these are games to be played, and that I think Hellblade 2 should have been more playable. And so, yeah, there's a lot of problems with it as far as I'm concerned, but that's why it's at number 2. There's only one thing worse than this one, I think.
Hey, you standing on business. I viciously disagree, but you know, I just think
viciously disagree is a new term.
Yeah, like, this is probably the most I've ever disagreed with you ever since we podcasted.
Yeah, that's cool though,
and it's cool, and that's what it is. I just the thing I just want you to keep in mind is that when you mention things like, one, what is the studio doing? Right? I do have to mention that they built this studio while they were working on this game. Mm-hmm. Like, when you say like, they took 5 years, what the hell were they doing? They were building a studio in conjunction with developing a game. That is a huge deal. The studio was not built out yet. So, 2, the only thing I would say with caution is that we always talk about developer vision and what they want to do. And it's fair to say, yo, I want to play a game, right? To me, you know how I look at this? It would be like me coming to Telltale and be like, okay, this is cool what you guys are doing, but I'm not controlling and doing what I want to do. You're not gamifying what I want. And the only pushback I would say is that's their vision though. Like they're trying to tell that. What I will give you though, it didn't connect with you, story wise and you felt it was a regression. That's fair. I can't push back on that. But that's probably the only thing I say. But I know it's divisive.
I sympathize with, I definitely sympathize with like, oh, okay, they were building a studio out. My suggestion as someone who is building a very small team for an ambitious game is, again, lesson learned here, but might want to scope your game accordingly, like
during COVID?
What do you mean? All right,
during COVID, you don't have a studio. Your studio's being built out and it's COVID.
Right. I don't get your point though.
The point is, we have to admit, during the conditions of COVID, the way remote work was being done, and you can't physically be around each other as much. So you're doing a remote thing, and you try to create a game under these different conditions, and you don't have a physical studio that's in the process of being built out. Then it's built out. Now we transition into the thing. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to paint a picture of what their conditions were while this game was being created, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel like every developer went through that, right? Like that's where, again, scoping accordingly.
Every developer kind of had a studio that existed. That's what I'm trying to say. Then they changed, okay, we're going to go work from home. They didn't have a studio yet. That's what I'm trying to say. Like it's still different. It's not one-to-one like everyone else.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair then. But again, then why would you punch for a bigger, more impressive game in the terms of visuals if you were ill-equipped to handle? From my point of view,
that's fair, and that's fair, and I think that is fair to say. Hey, man, like you presented an option, like you were going to be bigger, better, and then as we got close, you're like, hold on, it's going to be the same thing as that. I think that's very strong argument, and I was actually surprised by that.
I was surprised by it too, but I remember when we were covering it, I immediately went back on okay, the Naughty Dog thing, we're gonna have to ixnay that. Sorry, my bad. But even that aside, I don't think that killed our hype. We were like, okay, let's see what this is about. Like, okay, this is gonna be a 6-hour game that delivers a really poignant story. There's still power in that. I think for me, the biggest thing is the narrative really missed because it just didn't have the room to breathe. The type of narrative they were trying to tell, I feel, with the side characters included and everything, probably actually needed a good 8 to 10 hours, if I'm being frank, which is just, that sounds insane for a Ninja Theory game, right?
No, that's fair.
So I was like, it feel like it needed that kind of time to build out those characters so that Senno's journey was more personal. And that's where it just becomes more gamified because there's more content, more engagement, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's one I wanted to love. I wanted to love it, but
I know you and G hate this shit.
Yeah. I mean, Gene hates it more than me, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, good. So we up to number one?
We're up to number one. Worst game on Game Pass 2024.
I think we share this one, but I'm not sure. But I think we do.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, it's technically not a Game Pass game.
We definitely share this then.
Yeah, we definitely share it. So yeah, it's an expansion, but we have to count it. We have to, bro, because it's just like, we are champions for what at least Starfield attempted to do, right? And we are champions for, the base story of the journey of what Starfield is, right? And we get it. We understand the flaws of it, and then the exploration and the choice. We get that. But Shattered Space was supposed to be the moment, in my opinion, where we refine the vision. Right? That's supposed to be the moment when you say, okay, if you were unsure about Starfield, you were on the side of Starfield that it didn't hit the way you thought it was going to hit. This was supposed to be a return to form for Bethesda and classic, storytelling, choice and consequences. And then we left you with this cool cliffhanger about a faction. And we gave you this one of the strengths of Starfield was this amazing character, right? Yeah. That we like, and Trajan, if you actually formed a relationship with this character, a whole nother world opened up to you, right? And you're like, wow, we can't wait to dive into the House Farouk, right? And immediately in firing up this game, I remember saying, getting to Varun Kai, and it was like, yo, bro, you can't advance it if you don't join us. And that immediately rubbed me wrong. Why am I forced to be part of your ideology just to even continue the quest? And I was just like, I don't know if I like that. And I had to admit, I was just like, because I remember, Matty, I sat on that screen and I'm like, these are the only options I got. There's no like lie and be like, all right, whatever, or just another option. And I was just like, I didn't like the way this started. So yeah, you start the quest, and look, I said the few things that I did like about it. Again, as a person who likes seeing other cultures, and I felt like they took a little bit of Islam, they took a little bit of different things, as far as going through the journey of being part of House Farouk, but it just started to fall apart very quickly, and just simple things with the map design, and right next to the home world of House Farouk is a Crimson Fleet base.
Yeah.
That broke immersion for me.
Yeah.
It literally did. And then, we've talked about it before where, the core gameplay loop of going through a cool dungeon or a cool structure, clearing it out, doing all these things, and then getting random gun number 4. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, there's nothing unique about this. There's no, snake weapon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's something that's so uniquely designed with cool attributes that you can only find here, and it started to fall apart. And then for me, towards the end, I mean, I had 1 or 2 okay missions, right, during the thing. But where it really hit me was towards the end, because I saw a potential for something cool for them to do. As you start learning more about the depths of this faction, and I forgot the gentleman's name who was the leader of it. That's how uninspiring this thing kind of was. I don't even remember a lot of the characters anymore. But they left some notes that I'm like, oh, okay. There's a potential for redemption here. There's a potential to put this crazy twist. Completely left that on the cutting room floor, did nothing with it. And then again, just as it started, when I was disgusted with how it started to start the quest, I was very disgusted with how it ended. And it was kind of like, bro, these are your choices. 2 of the 5 are absolutely nothing burgers. One of them, they literally say, no, you can't do that for real. Now tell me what you want to do. And I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah. I always forget that. You always bring it up. I'm like, God, that was the most fucking ridiculous thing. Sorry, continue. But,
bro, no, I'm glad you expounded. I was just so defeated by that. I was like, this ain't my Bethesda. These ain't the gods. These ain't, like, at that moment, I sat there. I'm like, bro, Obsidian Lapchu, Larian Lapchu, like, this is not Bethesda. And it goes back to now, you got me thinking, while we're talking about Indiana Jones, again, I don't want to disrespect anyone's involvement, but it's clear as day that it feels like maybe Todd wasn't as involved in Starfield as he was all the other titles, because I just can't see him signing off on that if his full attention is on this. And maybe it's a situation where the expansion is held by another team, you know what I'm saying, and let them go. But yeah, Shattered Space, man, I am so I wanted to love it. I was the big man. I was trying to get my redemption talk be extra messy. And I sat there and I was like, not with this cock. You cannot, like, no.
It was definitely a huge L for us both.
Yeah, bro. We thought this was going to be the justification for why we love Starfield, and it ended up making us go, oh damn, this is why a lot of people still hate it, and will go hate it further. And we'll see what happens. I'm pulling for them whatever their next content drop is. But Shattered Space, did not even the little machine. What's our thing? What's it called? The
rover. The
rover. Yeah, not even that could save it when you literally jump in it and the frame rate tanks, and you're like, hey, I'm better off just kind of walking to the destination, floating around. So Shattered Space was my number 1 disappointment.
Yeah, same here, dude. It was I've talked about it a lot, but it was such a weird feeling to play a BioWare and a Bethesda Game Studios game this year, and both of them being like top worst experiences for me. That was like really heartbreaking. Especially Bethesda Game Studios. I was like, this just felt, again, it was, we talked about it earlier with like Microsoft Flight Sim. It was like, yeah, safe bet. Bethesda go. I mean, they tried something different with Starfield. It worked for some, didn't work for others. Okay. But when it came to like, oh, one area, roaming, exploring, this is Bethesda proper. Like this should be an easy 8 out of 10 kind of level experience. Like this should be great. For it to be one of the worst things I think they've made is really saddening. I mean, even on a role playing level, that's again, that long term, I wonder if this is us feeling the exit of Will Shen. I always thought about, he was like the choice and consequence guy. Like when he did Far Harbor, like he was the director of that. That was like, everyone in the BGS community raves about Far Harbor. And as much as people like to lay the praise at Todd's feet, it was Will Shen. He was the one who oversaw that whole thing. And he became the quest director for Starfield. And Starfield, whether people want to agree or not, I don't care. Very choice focused, I thought. Is it a fucking Witcher 3? Is it Baldur's Gate 3? No. Never tried to sell it to anyone like that, but it has choice. It has a level of like, who do you want to be in this world? You know? And I love that about the game. He left though after it had launched. And in that next year, they worked on the DLC. And when I played that game, I'm like, right away, it's like the choices are just not where they need to be. Like Bethesda's writing talent is completely failing them here, just in that level of agency. But I think where they failed most was with Andreja. Like that was the one bit of Shattered Space that did sour the main game for me, because I had such high investment in that character, and to know that's the resolution I got is gutting. She's a character built especially she's the best character to romance, in my opinion, strictly because there is this conflict of like, my religion means a lot to me. You are not of that religion, and I owe more loyalty to it than you. Do you still love me? Knowing all of that. And it's like, yes, of course I do. You know, so you go for it, right? You shoot for the stars. You're like, well, let's focus on right now. Like all the lines I thought were really great of just like, let's focus on me and you. We'll figure it out when we get there. And you get there. You're like, okay, to Varun Kai we go. And bro, she's such a non-factor. By the end of it all, she's like, hey champ, all good. Like no real reaction one way or the other. It was such pussyfooting around what was, I think, like one of the most interesting story bits in Starfield for even people who hated it. Was like, yeah, Andreja's a great character. And to fumble that aspect so bad, I don't even know how that happens. Like, if her level of involvement in that plot is what I would have expected if I brought Sam Coe with me. Like, what happens if I bring Sam Coe with me? Like, yeah, he'd have like a couple offhand comments, observe a few things, maybe talk during a quest or two, have a little side comment, but that's about it. And that was Andreja. I'm like, holy shit, dude, I'm not motivated to come back here with anyone else if this is what the character who's from here is saying. Yeah, what the hell is everyone else going to do? Good point. So that to me was the biggest thing. Like, yeah, the choices aren't really there, but I've never looked at BGS games as like pure Baldur's Gate 3 kind of choice and consequence, where it's like, I think Bethesda focuses more on be who you want in your play style and sort of like how you interact with its world. But there are rules to like the storytelling. And I think it's something they're going to have to let go of eventually and, let you like kill anyone and just let you kind of break the game, that sort of thing. But I think they're afraid of it all falling apart. Yeah. But something like Shattered Space, like it wasn't even initially like, oh, you can't, like you have to join the faction. I'm like, okay, like, it's basically a glorified faction storyline. I have to get in here one way or another. Is it annoying that there isn't like two ways to get into this? Yes, but all right, we'll figure it all out. And for it to kind of keep going down that rabbit hole, the lack of exploration there, where like, oh, we did handcrafted locations. It's like, okay, exciting. Time to see what you guys got. And like none of them were memorable. At least from me. Like I remember them for the wrong reasons is how I would really define it. As in, I remember like walking up to the satellite dish and inside was another like spacer gang and I killed them all. And like, that was literally it. You know, or oh, it's a Crimson Fleet hideout, and behind locked door number 72 is potentially a legendary weapon that is behind another locked chest, and that locked chest holds in it like a weapon that was not worth my time at all. Like this game has a serious loot problem. Serious loot problem. And again, I always say it, and I'll say it forevermore. When people go, oh, it's bad because it's more Starfield, I'm like, no. If it was more Starfield, I would not have had an issue with this at all. The problem is it is the Bethesda Game Studios traditional experience in its worst imaginable way that I didn't even think they were capable of doing bad based on how long this company has been around and doing this sort of thing for. That's the scariest part of it all. Is like they've been doing this since Morrowind, really, 21 years. It's like unfathomable. Like I can't even think of a comparable of like, it's like Nintendo rolling out a Mario game that's just fucking ass. It's like, you guys know how to do platformers. How did this happen? Right? Yeah. And it's like, it's the same thing here. You guys know how to do like a on foot roaming first person shooter. How did this happen?
Yeah.
The lack of loot though really kills it, because that was at least the fun part with the DLCs is like, oh man, like what unique weapon do I walk away from this whole expansion with that I bring into the base game? And like, what's that? Like, I think of like the alien blaster from Mothership Zeta in Fallout 3. Yeah. It's like, you get to that and it's like everything in the base game, you're just like disintegrating. It's hilarious. It's awesome. But you only get that there. Or if you get lucky and the Easter egg hits and it crashes in the middle of the wasteland, but that's like a really random drop. Yeah. So, dude, like when that fucking happened, I was just like, man, nothing. I just like a house.
Yeah, you can now live here.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not, dude. Like that's the thing. The fixation with player homes. I don't know who's calling those shots, but they need.
I don't care about.
They need to let go. Like a lot of people argue in defensive, and I'm like, yeah, maybe if the system was evolving more, but literally Fallout 4 and Starfield settlement systems are not literally 1-to-1, but they're very heavily comparable. They did not move that forward at all. It's literally a lot of the same systems just brought into Starfield. And that's not exciting. Fallout 4, it was exciting because it was new. It was different. And they did the same thing with 76. I was like, okay, sure. Like we can get away with this. But now we're in Starfield. It's the same fucking system. I'm like, guys. And now you're giving us player homes as rewards. It's like, what did Hearthfire do to us? Like with Skyrim's Hearthfire DLC, did they just convince themselves of something that with Fallout 4 settlement mode, they're like, we got to do this with everything. It's like, no, especially in a DLC, the last reward, that's a bonus. The player home's a bonus. Yeah. It's the weapon, it's the equipment, it's the accessory, it's the companion, it's a tangible thing that I see throughout the rest of my playtime.
Yes.
Not the fucking home that I'm not going to stay in.
I agree. Good point, because I was disgusted that was the end game result, a tangible quote result, as opposed to when you do the Crimson Fleet, and I got one of the best guns in the game, that red Revenant. I love that gun. It's so good. And I'm like, that's my reminder for all the effort I put in to that quest in conjunction with, a very unique character that you got. So yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
No, you're good, dude. Yeah, it's just, this was like the more heartbreaking game I played, because I usually, will like script my reviews with like bullet points and then put it all together. So Take One, only Locke has seen it. I always say like Take One was like me just popping off. I was like, literally like, what the fuck happened? Like, this is fucking terrible. And then I slept on it. Locke edited the whole thing. And I was like, nah, I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that person. Like, we're going to do like a more measured critique, kind of hopefully cut through to them and be like, yo, like what would get through to them more? Like Matty screaming at them being like, this is awful.
I love the growth.
Or
proud.
The growth, bro. I don't do that.
I love it.
It was. I was about to break character. Is what was about to happen. I was like,
you were about to be extra. Yeah.
Oh, bro. Like I was fucking mad. I was like, this is unacceptably bad. But then I realized, I'm like, what are they going to do? See this and be like, this guy's off his rocker and fucking ignore all criticism. Like, let's dial it in.
Break them down.
Let's dial it in, because they're going to see this, and let's really centralize the criticism to make it cut deep, like a disappointed dad.
Yes.
And I was like, that will be much more effective. But I at least got my emotions out of it, which
absolutely
I learned was actually kind of helpful. I was like, oh, nice. Now it's all gone. But dude, I was mad after this, because I was just like, this is just horrendous. I know a lot of people were like, I don't get it. And frankly, to the people who say I don't get it, I don't get you. I don't, as someone who's played Bethesda Game Studios games my whole life, I don't get how you can play their stuff, play this and go like, It's fine. I don't see a problem. It's like, no, dude, nothing they have done has been this horribly received before. Mostly negative on Steam. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. No, it's
Their
universal.
standards have not lowered this much, and neither should yours for them. They are capable of way better. And this is hopefully a horrible thing that they did that will be forgotten about. And while what they have said has not encouraged me, maybe they learned some tough lessons from, and they come back and do a lot better with year 2 DLC for Starfield. But it really put me from like, I'm super excited for Starfield's future and it's bright, to you either deliver hardcore with year 2 or just move on, man.
Right.
You know, and that's a completely different position to be in from a year ago. So this game did a lot to me. It's technically not Game Pass. It's, you know, Starfield's on Game Pass. So look, man, it's an Xbox experience you should avoid, is what we're trying to tell you.
Yes. No, well said. And to the point, what prior, the damage it did for me was prior to Indiana Jones, you know, coming out, you know, it did make me worry about them. It made me worry about, you know, is it a situation where they can't listen to feedback anymore, or, you know, they're not going to take this, as opposed to it. Because remember the comment that bothered both of us was just like, man, you know, thinking that if we would have put more features in it, and that would have been the issue, you know what I'm saying, kind of thing. So look, hopefully it's a lesson learned, you know, and there's course correction, and we want the best for the game. So I think it was one of those moments that I hope they can reflect upon. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
I agree, man. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Your top 5 best games on Game Pass for 2024, as well as your worst 3 for 2024. +1, +2, +3, you know, depending on how you want to summarize everything Cog and I added on afterwards. Yeah. This is a great episode, dude. We're rounding out the year here, and we hope you all enjoyed. Any closing thoughts, Cog, as we get on out of here?
No, man, I love this stuff. I love reflecting back at the year, and apologies for the passion. Sometimes I know I get passionate and stuff like that. You know, I'll try my best not to interrupt and let people get their points off and stuff like that. So I'll try to do better with that. But no, look, I love this stuff. I like reflecting on you know, the year as a whole, what's coming out in the service, that kind of stuff, and what they have to offer. So to me, you know, these are games worth checking out and worth avoiding. So worth avoiding, and I think it's fair. But I think overall, you know, with the service, I will just say is that I'm still appreciative of the service, because it really allows me to try things that sometimes I would not have tried. That's what I forgot. I had a couple honorable mentions that I did wanted to get off that I did forget. And obviously you took the Eiyuden one, which you got. Stalker 2, you know, I wanted to include it, but I couldn't include it because I was like, man, until the AI Life, A-Life 2.0.
I had the same thought process.
Same thing. I wanted to include you because this is such an experience that people need to play. And I'm like, man, the other one I wanted to say was Still Wakes the Deep.
I thought that would be on your list, yeah.
Yeah, the reason why is I could say, man, it was that contentious for me, the 5 that I had. I'm like, I can't leave any of these 5 off, but I highly want people to play Still Wakes the Deep. Some of the best voice acting, natural. And the reason why, I think, shout out to my man from Larian, he actually represented it too, because he said he loves the idea. I'm tired of every game that we play, we are the superhero. This is a regular guy going through regular problems in a weird horror type situation, which is really fun. And then the last one was something that me and you both always talked about was Sifu. And I was just like, you owe yourself to play Sifu. If you didn't play it on PlayStation and you're only in the Xbox ecosystem, you owe yourself to play Sifu, one of the coolest kind of like roguelike martial arts kind of, so, like, bro, it's so cool. So those are the ones I wanted to give that honorable mention that I forgot about.
Right on, dude. Yeah, I'm looking forward to 2025 and what Game Pass has to offer. For me, one of the first games that comes to mind is actually Sniper Elite Resistance. I love me some Sniper Elite, so looking forward to that one.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you've had a great holiday season. This would be our second holiday episode, so we'll be back after this week. So we'll see you in real time next week for some traditional Defining Duke. So we hope you enjoyed the holiday episodes while they were out. Again, Cog, always wonderful doing this with you. Looking forward to many more episodes in 2025. And time to round it out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. And we'll catch you in the next episode of Defining Duke and Xbox Podcast. Peace out.
Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from the United States of America. The show is conceived by Matthew Mr. Matty Plays Schroeder and me, Colin Moriarty, and is written and produced by Matthew Schroeder. Matty's co-host is Barry Lord Cognito Eversley. Defining Duke's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Defining Duke, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level on Patreon, and we're thankful for your kindness and generosity.